So the story for Tesla investors is turning overwhelmingly positive just over the last month. Today, we're going to review all the positives and the negatives facing Tesla stock, from auto gross margins bottoming, Cybertruck halo effect, China sales increasing, FSD take rates, and declining interest rates. There's so many positives. It's truly hard to ignore at this point. Our guests today, we're going to review each of these catalysts and shed more light on them. So we've got Larry Goldberg with us. He's a multi-entrepreneur. Thank you so much, Larry, for joining me.
Thanks, Herbert. Great to be here.
Yeah, so this is a fantastic tweet from Gary Black. He lists out the positives and negatives of what's happening with Tesla. And I myself created a list of 14 news items that came out in the last month of just seemingly incredibly positives for Tesla. So let's go through some of these that he did on his list, and we'll have you kind of commentate if you agree to it, don't agree to it, and so forth. So he starts off saying that, Tesla shorts, in order to be a short, you have to ignore these overwhelmingly positive narrative. Start with one, auto gross margins bottoming. He's been saying quite a bit for the institutional investors. What he's been saying is that you need to convince these investors that price cuts will no longer continue to happen. And if he sees Tesla raising prices, if he sees other signs, he feels better. And right now, Gary, as a representative of institutional investors, believe that auto gross margins have bottomed, meaning he's not expecting Tesla to do more price cuts over the year. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't have as much conviction about price cuts as Gary, and I don't have as much concern about price cuts as Gary. So I'm kind of on. I see the positive on his perspective. Certainly, we're not going to see the level of price cuts that we saw earlier this year and last year, but I don't think we're going to see an abatement of, he makes a point, he makes a really good point, the distinction between a price cut and a discount for a particular, end of quarter or something, because that's what the auto companies are doing. Right now, there are significant discounts across the board in the showrooms across the United States. And so he distinguishes between those two moves, and I think Tesla are learning. But, Tesla specifically reduced prices across the board over the last year to reposition their line of cars, to broaden the TAM of their cars, and to bring their cars into competition with some of the lower priced cars. And I think he missed that point. And maybe the market missed it as well. Yes, it does, depress margins somewhat, but Tesla's got a lot of margin available. So, it doesn't change the future of Tesla. It doesn't change the dynamic of the Tesla story, but it does change the immediate earnings of Tesla story. So Wall Street is down on that. Prices come down according to that. And that movement is over. In that respect, I agree with him.
Yeah, I agree with you too. Cybertruck halo effect.
Yeah, he's right on target. He's absolutely bullseye. Cybertruck has been getting such great press. Such great press. Yeah, there are a lot of naysayers, but that's normal for Tesla. But wow, it's converted quite a few guys out there. Jason Camiso's piece it's really changed a lot of minds, and got a lot of heads turned, and some people overreached in criticizing it and got themselves roundly trounced as a result. So yeah, great halo effect, great impact. I think it's the car of the century, right at the beginning of the century, or even the first quarter of the century.
Yeah, for sure. So we're starting to see people getting, head turns. What is that? As they see it being driven around, and then the searches for Tesla is skyrocketed globally because of the Cybertruck launch. So yeah, there's going to be a halo effect. And the other thing was the same thing happened with the Model Y and the Model 3. Every time that happens, there's always this halo effect. Okay. China's strength accelerating. So we just reported in the second week of December, Tesla China sold a record week. It was incredible, 18.3 thousand vehicles. They're on track for a very good quarter, on track for, just things seem to be improving there as well. So what's your analysis of what's
I
happening in
think
China?
could be at 20,000 week before the quarter's out.
Okay. And then
You
what's
know,
your thinking about, are you still thinking we're going to hit the 1.8 million cars by the end of the entire year,
yeah,
2023?
I do.
So
I do think
right
so.
on 1.8. Okay.
Yeah,
So
there've been some who've been skeptical of it, but I think we'll do it. I think we'll do it with a little bit a little bit over.
yeah, I agree with you. So I think we're not going to have a delivery miss, but I do think that the margins will be lower than what it
Yes,
was last quarter. So people
on the
need to be
line.
aware that, just be aware that, I don't know if that's built into the stock, but it's going to be lower than Q3 is what most people are saying. The next thing he says that, in January 1st, right, the IRA credit is changing. Instead of being a tax credit, you're going to be able to take it right off the MSRP price. It's $7,500 for the Model Y. And that dramatically changes. Instead of waiting a year, you can actually get it right off, your monthly fees changes. However, at the same time, the negative is that it's only the Model Y. It turns out that we found out that Model 3 no longer applies for their $7,500. But that's another one. And yeah, thoughts on that one?
Yeah, the 7,500, losing that on the Model 3 is going to impact 2024. There's no doubt about it, because that refreshed Model 3 should have a very strong appeal, and we just lose the edge because of the lack of that discount. And maybe Tesla will trade that off between the Y and the 3 in terms of pricing. I'm not sure it's such an easy thing to do now, but time will tell. But yeah, the Y should take off. Dramatic. It should be a very, very dramatic takeoff for the Y, because now it puts Y into a whole different pricing category. Whole different pricing category. Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be big. Now, this one here, the Highland, the Model 3, the new revised Model 3 will accelerate the Model 3 growth because it's, much more accepted. We're expecting that to come to the US in the first quarter. Yeah, are you expecting more Model 3s being sold?
I'm worried about the Model 3. I
Mm.
think the Model Y, the trade-off between the Y and the 3 is so little. Now, I think anybody wanting a Model 3 will go into the showroom and walk out with a Model Y. It's much more car. It's an acceptable form factor, because, yeah, it's a crossover, but it drives like no other car drives. So I think it's an acceptable replacement for a Model 3. Can't see the Model 3, competing with it with that very slim difference when you take the $7,500 into account.
Okay. So this is his first list, but look at this. There's even more. So I'm going to have to accelerate through this a little bit more. But um, I'm going to split this up into two, because the last one is declining interest rates. Well, I want to have a longer conversation on that. But these
Yeah.
next four are actually all future-looking statements anyway. So you got the Cybertruck brand is going to become the Cybertruck van, a Cyber van, and a smaller Cybertruck too. So that's that's in the plans, but that could be
But it's
two,
a
three,
very
4 years.
important point. I think Gary's right on target, because, this is part of the halo effect. When people realize the
Yeah.
value of the Cybertruck and its brand, I think people will see the opportunity in the future.
Yeah, there's going to be a smaller Cybertruck, and then a Cyber van. So yeah, people see that. The next gen $25,000 vehicle. You got to admit, we're the statements from Elon and the kind of what they showed, what's happening soon. That's coming sooner. Good in Mexico is kicked off. The permit has been approved, and there's a lot more activity happening on the site. And so when that comes, it's going to be massive TAM. The bot, we saw the demo of the bot Gen 2. And right now, it's not being part of the valuation of Tesla for the most part. FSD and likely reduction, price reduction, he's what he's expecting. FSD take rate will soar. So yeah, these four things are a lot of the bets, and they're all making movements in terms of stories and narratives about them.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I would only comment that who said that next gen is going to be a 25K vehicle?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who said that, but I think it's going to be closer to a 20K vehicle. I'm aligned with Warren Redlich on this. I don't see any reason for it not to be a 20K vehicle. Certainly in China, it will be a 20K vehicle. In the United States, it may be that they can get 25K for it in the first year or so. But anyway, I don't want to quibble. I think that he's right on target with all of the above. But those are more like, reputational and halo improvements on the line in general. We're not going to see, early impact of that. We're going to see that in the latter half of the year.
Okay. The final positive here, it's a big one in my mind. It's declining interest rates, right? They've already kind of forecasted signaled that there's going to be 3 rate cuts next year. When that happens, it boosts the growth PEs the most, the growth stocks the most. And Tesla, of course, becoming the highest kind of the high asset ones. That's why we had to do price cuts, and that's why the stock fell. This will reverse that. But in addition to that, I want to show you these charts, Larry, get your reaction to it. There's talk now that there's so much money sitting on the sidelines. 8.3 trillion was parked in global money market funds at the end of November. 5.73 trillion of that was in US funds. How much of that's going to start flowing into equities, stocks, right? This is kind of the, as it's just been continuing to, people have been saving up money on that, but it's going to eventually flow back into investments. And then another research from Vanda Research just released saying that Tesla stock is the one that's going to be, it was slated to see the highest net inflows from retail investors of any securities. So Tesla will even eclipse the S&P 500. Yeah. So, this is the thinking of what's happening. So money's flowing, interest rates are cuts. Isn't that going to be it's basically is the top catalyst?
The problem about forecasting the future is that it's the future. To murder a Yogi Berra, a supposed Yogi Berra quote. The fact that there's a lot of money sitting on the sidelines could mean several things. It could mean, yes, there's a lot of dry powder and it can come to the market. It can also mean there's a recession on its way and people are holding back. And those are completely polar opposites, and both could be true. So what this dry powder really means, I mean, if this dry powder were real and people were willing to invest it, why did we see this massive, drop in the market earlier in the year? Well, we've seen the market rise back up to high levels again, which kind of backs up the argument. I'm very worried about the economy. I'm not yet comfortable that we're going to have a soft landing, and Janet Yellen's taking her victory lap right now. I'm not there yet. I think that we do have the risk of a serious recession, of a hard landing. We could scrape home without it. I think the last cut was unnecessary, severely unnecessary. I think we could have got to where we are now without it. And I think that, the question of the dynamics of the market are very, very, it's really hard to see what happens, particularly when there are 2 wars ongoing right now with no clear visibility as to when they end. So I see the catalyst, I understand the catalyst, but the catalyst also represents what could be a serious risk, as in all these economic forecasts. So I'm sitting on the fence on this one.
Okay. Sounds good. I mean, we've heard you explain that before. We'll see what happens. Appreciate that. So let's go through the list of the shorts. Here's what the negatives are that possibly could impact the stock negatively. So they say, and I'm just going to list all of it first and we can address them. Tesla cuts prices again. So they think that might happen. If that does, the stock will fall. Global EV adoption is stalling. There's that narrative out there, but in fact, most of us Tesla bulls think that it's not the global EV
I
adoption.
think most of us think that it's global EV adoption of legacy car
yeah,
makers stall.
not Tesla's. Yeah. FSD and autopilot regulation, if they come in and say, hey, you can't do this anymore. Tesla brand's been damaged by Elon's political views. Negative cash flow causes Elon to sell more Tesla shares. And then Tesla brings X under Tesla umbrella. What? Okay, I've never heard of that one. I don't know where that came from. Anyways, this is his list. Go ahead and address any of them.
Yeah. I mean, some of those are a little bit preposterous. I mean, the chances of bringing X under the Tesla umbrella are close to zero. One huge catalyst was bringing XAI under the Tesla umbrella. That could be a huge catalyst. I mean, I think they should assign a percentage of the XAI stock to Tesla because, that relationship between XAI and Tesla for Dojo and for other, sharing is quite critical. They need to have a formal agreement. I think it should start with an exchange of stock. So I think that's important. But why X would have to come under the Tesla umbrella, I don't know. By the way, I'm very high on X. I'm a bull on X. I'm an investor in the company. I think the company has enormous future. So, I'm discounting Gary because it's a stock analyst thinking, and that's fair. There's nothing wrong with that. As the Tesla brand being damaged by Elon's political views and behavior, I think there's a component of truth to that. Mm-hmm. Elon is Elon. He's never going to change. And, if you invest in Tesla, you're investing in Elon. If you don't believe in Elon, you should not invest in Tesla, period. I mean, there's no question about it. You shouldn't complain about it. You shouldn't, gripe about it. You shouldn't moan about it. If you don't know what you're getting into with Elon, you shouldn't be investing in Tesla because you haven't done your homework. I mean, it could impact the stock price temporarily, but most of these items are short-term impacts from short-term rumors, in my view. I don't think they support a short thesis across the board, unless the short is looking for a very short-term hit, and they can somehow conjure up, that this particular event's going to happen. So
the big one is they think that EV adoption is going to stall at 8%, and it's hit its all-time high.
It's not stalling at all. It's growing quite dramatically in China, in Europe, and in the United States.
Yeah. And then this FSC autopilot regulation, I mean, like you said, okay, even if it does happen, it's not a hit. But, they spent 3 years investigating NHTSA, and then it turned out to be a simple software fix, which Tesla already uploaded last week. So it turned out to be a nothing burger at all.
That's right. And it impacted the stock for all of 3 days.
Wonderful. Well, that was fun. I really appreciated that, Tesla. Larry, appreciated you reviewing all the positives for Tesla, all the negatives for Tesla, and then getting your reaction to it is something I really appreciate. And I think that Tesla stock investors would appreciate as well. Follow Larry on X at Tesla Larry. Thanks, everybody. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.